Jeremy Pruitt in Tennessee, no one knows what's happening there right now. I mean, it's got a lot of similarities to what we were seeing, as I've said before, at Texas. Not a mirror image, but here's a similarity. The similarity is right now, you could ask around, and no one would bet money on who the Tennessee head coach is going to be to start the 2021 season. Now, here's the other similarity. That is only really widely felt close to the Tennessee program. Like once you get away from it a little bit, if you were to ask an Oregon State fan, hey, what tell me about Tennessee football? You'd say, well, Jeremy Pruitt's the head coach and blah, blah, blah. And it would never even occur to you that there's stuff happening behind the scenes there, nor would it. You don't really know a whole lot about Knoxville and the goings on there if you're in Corvallis, Oregon. Well, it's the same way with Texas. It's been the same way. You would not have known really that there was a whole lot going on behind the scenes at Texas over the last month, would you? There is a big difference, though. I'm about to tell you what it is. Well, I'll tell you right now, actually. I mean, here's the difference. Texas did not botch anything. And I'm asking, is Tennessee going to? So there is a popular talking point out there right now that Texas botched their coaching search because they went after Urban Meyer, didn't get him. Then they gave Herman the vote of confidence, but then they ended up firing him after an impressive bowl game. And so that's viewed as botching it. Now, that's not botching at all. Here's what happened. What happened is the moment they pressed go on trying to go get Urban Meyer, as it turns out, they had decided at Texas, we're making a move. We're going to make a move regardless. We cannot publicly let people know that we don't want Tom Herman as our coach and then keep him as our coach because we didn't get who we wanted, a candidate A, for example. And so what they did is they went after candidate A. And when that didn't work out, they just kind of put out, if you read it close, a generic statement that said he's our coach. It didn't say anything about really we're long-term committed to him, but it did quiet down enough of the noise to where it got it off the radar and there was some momentary certainty for signing day purposes and whatnot, whether you think that's right or not, there was some certainty as to where the program was right now. And then when they wanted to make the move, it was like the snap of a finger. You went from not knowing it was going to happen to 20 minutes later, not only did you know it was happening, you knew who the replacement was going to be. Well, that's how you do it. Right now, none of that exists at Tennessee. It's total limbo. You know that there's an investigation going on, and some of it's internal, by the way, an investigation going on. What's the purpose behind that investigation? They've already been poor on the field. Jeremy Pruitt certainly does not have anything that would be remotely close to considered universal support in the fan base or behind the scenes. Is this being done potentially to obviously thwart a buyout that they would have to pay so they can get rid of him and, not have to pay a ton of money to do it? All that speculation. I can't tell you one way or the other. I can tell you I feel like that's probably what's going on, but I can't tell you definitively. But I would also ask this. I would ask, what's a timeline here? When are we going to know anything? Like, that's the question. Because here's a really bad place to be. It's a really bad place to be sitting here in January after the dust has settled, the season is over, the early signing date is over, and every day that passes, you get that much closer to spring football in the 2021 season. I know it's January, but that's how you have to think because everyone else out there you're competing with has already either made a move, in the case of South Carolina, or, at Georgia, there is no move to be made. Florida's got a different set of circumstances, but everyone else is moving forward, man, and you are sitting there in total and complete limbo. What are the players on your roster supposed to think? What are your recruits supposed to think? What are your signees supposed to think? And, hey, what's the rest of the coaching staff supposed to think? So I don't know what the timeline's going to be there, and first and foremost, that's where I wish they'd learn from Texas, okay? Even if you don't know, internally, even if you don't know Pruitt's going to be the guy, even if you don't know that, even if really you have the intention of him not being there, man, put something out, say something. And that leads me to believe there's not a whole lot of direction, either behind the scenes or there is direction, but it's people pulling in different directions and said a direction a lot there. But the point being, I don't necessarily know if they have their stuff together in Knoxville right now. And I don't, if that's the case, and I believe it to be the case, I don't think that you could get Jeremy Pruitt in this room right now with me, inject him with truth serum, and have him give us a much better update than I just gave you. Because if what I just suggested is indeed the case, Jeremy Pruitt probably wouldn't know any more than us. I mean, for the time being, as far as he knows, he's the head coach of Tennessee. Every morning he shows up. His name's still in the parking spot. But, I mean, who knows what tomorrow is going to bring. So, I mean, my default stance here, and I've well chronicled this now, has been entering 2020. I didn't have him on any kind of hot seat. They had the 8-game winning streak to end the season last year. I thought they were on a pretty good climb. We'll see, ... And so, my take, and it wasn't a Pruitt thing, it was a general thing, is I'm not going to support the firing of any coach that I didn't already think needed to be out going into 2020. So COVID was going to make it a weird year. I wasn't going to let it affect my judgment of a coach. Okay, that's where I stood. Obviously, some people at Tennessee felt different, which is fine. It's their program. But here's the thing. So you would think that my stance now would be still, okay, no matter how bad Pruitt was, you got to keep him. Well, here's one thing that can deem that totally irrelevant. If you allow him to remain just twisting in the wind, that changes the status quo. The record didn't change the status quo for me. Like if you were steadfast behind him the whole time, that wouldn't have changed anything. What changes it is you had the bad record and then you have the internal investigation and therefore a lot of smoke and no one providing clarity. Well, at that point, you've probably left him a no-win situation. It was already going to be hard. Like a lot of you would already argue he wasn't going to win anyway. Well, that may be true, it may not be true, but I can assure you it's going to be true if Tennessee allows him to twist in the wind while the rest of his competition puts even more and more distance between Tennessee and their programs. And so if that's the case and we're not going to provide any clarity, well, you just need to make a move. You need to grit your teeth and do what needs to be done and just drop the hammer instead of sitting around and waiting. Like that's not a way to run. That's not any way to run a high school football program, much less a college football program in the SEC. So, you know good and well, I'm not a believer in this whole, well, Tennessee just needs to accept that they're not a potential tier 1 program anymore. Yeah, they are. Don't let anyone tell you different. Don't let anyone tell you that Tennessee's not capable of building the same kind of winner that Georgia can build or that Florida can build. They absolutely are. Tennessee's capable of everything Clemson football is capable of. They absolutely are. They're not that now, and so it's hard to see, but it takes a little foresight. It takes a little vision. You know, a deaf, blind monkey could sit around and wait for someone to be good and then say, they're good. Yeah, that's easy. Tennessee could be that. They're not that. They're not close to that right now. They could be that. They have all the resources in place. I've talked about that before several times.